You know how we sometimes hear one army mocking another's training? Well, in Washington, that jibe took a literal turn. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called a meeting with 800 of the military's top brass, generals, admirals, commanders, and let's just say he did not hold back. He said he is tired of seeing quote-unquote fat troops and beardos out on the battlefield. He even warned those who don't buy into his agenda to consider resigning. Not to be outdone, Senator Lindsey Graham piled on, saying, a 600-pound man is more likely to pass up a donut than the Democrats are to shut down the government, quote-unquote. Again, using a little dark humor there to land a major political jibe. Now, is this just shock talk here, or is there some truth to those claims, and what's really going on? After all, it's a matter of national security. And turns out, these 800 leaders would welcome higher standards of fitness across the ranks, but the US military already has fitness standards. Yes, they vary by branch, of course, and often adjust scoring by the age groups, but Pete Hegseth's message pushes the tone from meet the standard to look like you mean business, quote unquote. Let's just break down how exactly each U.S. service handles fitness today. Let's start off with the U.S. Army. As of June 2025, it has replaced its old test with the Army Fitness Test, AFT. The test now featuring deadlifts, push-ups, weighted sprints, planks, and a 2-mile run. Some combat roles require even tougher benchmarks. In the U.S. Navy, it's push-ups, forearm planks, and either a swim or run for endurance. And in the U.S. Air Force, run 1.5 miles, sit-ups, push-ups, and a waist-to-height ratio check. And combat roles face stricter rules. From 2026 on, airmen will be tested twice a year, with the 2-mile run counting for half the score. In the U.S. Space Force, it started with Air Force standards, push-ups, run, plank, but it's now developing its own holistic fitness regime that considers continuous performance, health optimization, and capacity building. So, yes, the U.S. already expects a lot from its service members, but the question still is, does Hegseth's rhetoric change the culture? Because after all that talk, so-called fat generals, standards, resignations, the real question is, in the modern world, who are the fittest armed forces really? When it comes to the fittest armed forces in the world, the rankings are never simple, of course. Do we measure the fitness of the entire army or the extreme demands of the elite special forces, for example? Let's just start off with Russia. Spetsnaz. The training there is notorious. Long forced marches, brutal hand-to-hand combat, an unforgiving selection process that only the toughest can survive. Of course, the U.S. Navy SEALs remain iconic, swimming miles in open water, running under heavy load, surviving what is called Hell Week. The program has become the benchmark of modern military toughness. And then there is Israel's Sayeret Matkal, an elite commando unit whose endurance training and survival tests are basically designed to break even the strongest recruits. Closer home, the Indian Army's para-special forces are considered among the toughest in Asia. What's their dropout rate? Almost 90%, with candidates enduring weeks of continuous drills on minimal food and sleep. The British SAS is also legendary. From the Welsh mountains to the jungles of Belize, their grueling selection regime demands unmatched endurance as well as resilience. Now, of course, different nations, different standards. But one thing here is clear: physical fitness remains at the core of military readiness. Or, to borrow Pete Hegseth's phrasing here, in the modern battlefield, no general wants to be called the fat one. Let's now shift our focus to Pakistan, where former Prime Minister Imran Khan is facing what his family and supporters describe as conditions meant for prisoners awaiting execution. According to a report by The Times, Khan remains locked in Adiala jail, Rawalpindi, inside a cramped, solitary cell that his family says is designed to break his spirit and silence his voice. Khan has been placed under round-the-clock surveillance with almost no contact with the outside world. His family says the cell, measuring 9 by 11 feet, lacks light, air, or access to basic medical care. His younger son, Qasim, called it nothing short of torture, warning that the confinement is not about justice, but about suppressing political dissent. His two sons, Suleiman and Qasim, children from his marriage to Jemima Goldsmith, have reached out to world leaders, in fact, including US President Donald Trump, urging intervention. They insist their father is being stripped of fundamental rights, denied regular lawyer visits, and cut off from family communication. In a letter allegedly smuggled from prison, Khan himself described being trapped in a dungeon of silence, quote unquote, with no access to newspapers, books, or consistent medical attention, as claimed. He accused Pakistan's military leadership of orchestrating a campaign to crush him politically. He also alleges that his wife, Bushra Bibi, is enduring mistreatment behind bars to pressure him further. Khan became Pakistan's 19th Prime Minister in 2018 with the backing of the country's military. He was ousted in 2022 following a no-confidence vote. And amid constant friction with the Pakistan Army and its generals, since then the courts have handed him a 14-year sentence in a corruption case involving land deals. More than 300 additional charges, ranging from contempt to misuse of state secrets, hanging over him. Khan insists these cases are fabricated, calling them a calculated attempt to force him into exile or submission. And his party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, has petitioned the United Nations and rallied supporters worldwide, saying the harsh prison conditions prove their claims of persecution. Advisors close to Khan warning his health is worsening, claiming that the former Pakistan cricket captain suffers from vertigo and hearing issues. With no recent medical evaluation, Pakistan's government has rejected all allegations of abuse. The country's interior minister saying Khan has access to exercise equipment, books, specially prepared meals. Further claiming that Khan's sister, Alima, and lawyers visit regularly, adding that Khan is healthy and cared for. Chaudhry also accused his sons of trying to politicize the matter without applying for visas to meet him in jail. Back in July, Khan's ex-wife had said that her sons have no role in Pakistan politics and should not be prevented from speaking to their father, stating that the matter is not political, rather it's a personal vendetta. For now, Imran Khan remains cut off, locked in solitary confinement under conditions likened to death row. His family warning that silence from the international community risks not only his life, but also the future of Pakistan's democracy. The youth putting governments on a corruption watch. Gen Z protesters have taken to the streets in several parts of the world. 3 countries currently in a way at boiling point due to anti-corruption movements driven by youngsters: Morocco, Madagascar, and Peru. In Madagascar, protesters demanding the resignation of the country's president. They have now called for a general strike. The calls for sweeping reforms coming amid growing dissent and outcry over the failure of electricity and water supplies.
What we are demanding is the resignation of the president because we no longer agree with his policies, especially the suppression. We don't like it at all. The forces are no longer working to protect the population, but to frighten it, and we are not afraid at all. Moreover, oppression is not a solution.
The demand has been raised after the leader sacked the Prime Minister and the entire government in response to demonstrations which have since turned chaotic and deadly. The students are joining in as well, calling for a complete overhaul of the system.
c'est notre objectif. Et pour...
I think that this movement is the way to change the system. We need to rearrange things because it's this system that makes it easier for power to be monopolized by a certain group of people who only care about their own well-being.
Across several parts of Morocco, the youth clashed with the police on the fourth day of the protest. According to a human rights body in the country, authorities have arrested more than 200 protesters in the capital city. In fact, Moroccans have been demanding reforms in the sectors of public health and education. The latter triggered involvement from Gen Z demonstrators, while it is the death of 8 pregnant women in hospitals allegedly, which snowballed into public anger seen on the streets. The weekend in Peru's capital witnessed unrest as well. 19 people have been injured in anti-government protests. Thousands are out on the streets against growing accusations of corruption and extortion by the government. Heavy police presence triggered a standoff between the protesters and the authorities.
They're just standing there guarding. I imagine they've had their salaries raised so they can stand there and do nothing. Here they all gather bravely and stand united, but when it comes to crime out on the street, no. They're never there and they always show up late, which is infuriating.
Unrest on the streets of Peru increased after the president's government passed a law on September 5, which mandates contribution from young people towards private pension funds. The law coming at a time when the people are scrambling with job insecurity. Meanwhile, Iran-backed Houthis are escalating their fight with Washington, this time not with missiles but with sanctions. The group saying it will target U.S. oil giants like ExxonMobil and Chevron, retaliating against American sanctions, even as a fragile ceasefire with the Trump administration hangs in the balance. The Sanaa-based Humanitarian Operations Coordination Center, HOCC, which is a body set up last year to basically liaise between the Houthi forces and the commercial shipping operators, sanctioned 13 U.S. companies, 9 executives, 2 vessels. The sanctions are allegedly in retaliation for U.S. sanctions imposed on the Houthis this year. Despite a truce agreement with the Trump administration in which the Yemeni group agreed to stop attacking U.S.-linked ships in the Red Sea and the wider Gulf of Aden, now it remains unclear whether these sanctions signal that the Houthis will begin targeting vessels linked to the sanctioned organizations, companies and individuals. But if they do, it would basically risk violating the ceasefire agreement with the Trump administration that was facilitated by Oman since 2023. The Houthis have launched numerous assaults on vessels in the Red Sea that they deem to be linked with Israel. They say it is in solidarity with the Palestinians over Israel's war on Gaza. Their attacks have had an impact on the vital oil tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, which is located between Oman and Iran, connecting the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. The Houthis have occasionally attacked ships in the Gulf of Aden, which connects the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea. On Monday, the Houthis also claimed responsibility for attacking a Dutch cargo ship in the Gulf of Aden with a cruise missile, injuring 2 crew and leaving the vessel ablaze and adrift. Last year, the U.S. imported about 500,000 barrels per day of crude and condensate from Gulf countries through the Strait of Hormuz. That represents about 7% of total US crude oil and condensate imports, the lowest level in nearly 40 years, due to the increased domestic production and Canadian imports. And now the question still is, will the Houthis' decision to blacklist the American companies have any effect on the oil market? Experts don't think so. In fact, they say that the move is unlikely to actually impact the oil market, since most of the trade in the region is handled by Chinese, Russian, Iranian, and other Gulf companies that the Houthis want to keep on good terms with. Even the HOCC statement says, I'm quoting, "The ultimate goal of the sanctions is not punishment in itself, but to bring about positive behavioral change," quote unquote.